It is an incredibly serious issue that we have to get our heads around, and you only need to, I mean, if anyone needed any extra convincing, you look at the World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report, and out of the top 10 risks that we face over the next 10 years, 6 of them are all climate change related. So, and the number one risk is the failure to mitigate against climate change. And that's actually the one as a planet we're actually most unprepared for. The reality of the situation is the built environment plays a significant role with it now. So 39% approximately global greenhouse gas emissions come from the built environment. And if you break that down within that, there's 11% that's inherent in the associated and embodied emissions with the manufacturing facility process, with the materials that are being used. And then 28% is the operation of that built environment. So there's a huge amount to do. However, if you flip that round, that's a huge opportunity. As an industry, we can affect change on a massive scale. So this kind of activity, collaborated together, sharing best practices and sharing ideas is definitely the way forward, because ultimately, we were saying this earlier, Jay, that when you get together and work in a collaborative way, we will achieve more. But the good news is that we do have the technologies available, and we do have the expertise to actually make change. So in terms of the efficiency of buildings, if we focus on this first topic, efficient operations, sensor technology, the use of renewable energy sources, the scale of the issue is so huge. The global building stock is potentially going to double by 2060. And according to the UN, it's 68% of the world's population are expected to live in urban areas by 2050. So, we have to get our heads around the buildings that we have, but we also have to get our heads around how we sustainably design the buildings of the future so that they're actually all in sync with running towards that overall decarbonisation goal. So optimizing the building envelope with the proper insulation, high performance windows, ceiling air leaks, all of these things are going to be there to help reduce the energy consumption, but also improve the experience for the people inside that building. Operational strategies, I'd love to hear what you guys are talking about in terms of your HVAC systems and systems talking to each other so that they're running as efficiently as possible. Data centers, they need constant cooling. So we could be capturing that heat that then provides heating and power and hot water to the whole building.
When you're in the office, it's different to at home. You're not necessarily directly paying for the bills or the consumption. So you'd leave a light on and you'd walk out, it'd be fine. But I remember growing up, if I left a light on in the house, I better go and turn it off.
The footprint of the internet is 1.6 billion tons a year. And you go, wow, that sounds like it's a lot, but what's it actually, how do I relate to that? We're literally going to jump on a first class flight, the two of us, we're going to fly around the world nearly 30 million times. And that's the impact.
Yes, it needs to be driven by people. People need to feel, well, what's in it for me? Because at the end of the day, we're all that's how we're all driven.
Most things in life, it comes to communication. And I think for one of the questions I have and would like to get from today is how people are addressing behaviour change. So obviously for myself and travel, car sharing is a great solution. Getting people to do it's really tricky. It's always like, where do we focus the energy and the time with those people about changing their behaviour, helping them change their own behaviour if the appetite is there, and also integrating the people who are doing a really great job, who might be getting frustrated. It's like, I'm really trying here, I'm really trying to be a good human being.
I think the ability to measure the behaviours and the outcomes of the behaviours really helps people to get it in their mind, to actually understand, actually, by doing this, I've enabled us to save this energy or even cost, depending on what the key deliverable is.
For those people who want to change, sometimes they don't know how to change it or what to do or where to start. So we as a company, we actually had a carbon literacy training just to show people what's actually happening and how bad the situation is. But then also with solutions, so what you can do as an individual or as a company.
It's education, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, none of us when we were at school would have ever heard of sustainability. I didn't, and I'm sure you guys didn't. So I think education's key to then drive strategy and forward thinking. Yeah.
But you can't force people to use public transport or do car sharing. So I think it is for things like that, it's definitely carrot more than stick.
Yeah.
And we were trying to think of ways that we could entice people to use more public transport.
Most companies want to be sustainable until they realise that the cost is going to be more. The sustainability desire decreases as they see that the cost goes up. So if you're able to show an impact of what going down the sustainability route will have long term, people will generally be more invested in it. They see it as an investment as opposed to just a cost. It's like solutions that we're putting in the workplace that can save the money on like lighting or power. In furniture specifically, sustainability is not just like a buzzword anymore. You have to be really looking at sustainability to have a seat at the table, because like tenders, large developers, large construction companies, they're driving this has to be sustainable. So yeah, it's nice to say we just stick some furniture in, but if we can think 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line, like modular furniture, spaces get used, the product is modular, so rather than being on a landfill, small parts can be changed.
Can I link your communication part up to your scared of kind of costs of being sustainable? I think there's a disconnect between like architectural designers and M&E consultants on the cost side as well, because say if we specify a point of use energy system, that's actually going to reduce thousands of meters of pipework, lots of valves that are required on there, nowhere near as much ongoing Legionella testing. Means that client can then spend more money on your product.
Yeah.
So if we have a link between the M&E consultant and architect, that's better.
But what are the government doing to sort of incentivise people to do that?
For one of our buildings, we got a ground source heat pump, and you do get a bit of money back, but for the added cost of it, you're not getting it back. So unless you've got solar, it's the cost thing. And then that's a big thing when you spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on this system, and then you have to put 100 grand of solar panels in, and then it's cost neutral.
It's about actually dealing with and responsibly dealing with what you can. You were saying something about trying to get people to actually buy into this whole...
Yeah, definitely. So we incentivise so we work with LiftShare. They recently changed to Mobility Ways, but LiftShare is a well-known platform amongst quite a lot of blue chip companies. It's used by lots of NHS, Jaguar Land Rover. So we've partnered with them. In order to run a successful LiftShare scheme, you do need to offer incentive. Preferred car parking spaces. I offer for every 10th shared journey, we give a coffee voucher. People love free coffee and food. So every 25th, we offer a lunch voucher in our restaurant and outlets. So things like that. And obviously, LiftShare are very good at communicating why it's good to share. So it can reduce stress. They've done studies on that, companionship, safety, as well as the monetary cost as well.
I think the only difficulty at the moment is even if people want to use public transport, for example, and they say, okay, today I'm going to take the train, and then there's all the difficulties, the train not even working, and then what do? Then you just get a bit annoyed, don't you? So I think it's very hard as a business then to put anything in place to make people want to use public transport.
To me, it's the cost of the convenience. And I tried the train last week because Knutsford's not got a great train, but it does have one. But it was £14 return for a peak time ticket. Still takes an hour. It took me less than that this morning in the car. And you're right, often Knutsford has one train an hour at peak time all day. That's all it does. So if that train doesn't turn up, and you only find out about that on the platform when they tell you this train's not arriving, then what do you do? It's unreliable, it's expensive. And it's not just expensive as in, well, we all should do our bit and look at, savings elsewhere beyond that. It's like quite a lot more expensive than I pay £7 to park the car. And there's so much that could be done at a national level to drive that change that would make it more viable for most people.
Well, I know what quite a few companies are doing now, from speaking to friends, is the company's doing salary sacrifice on electric vehicles, so you can so that way you get taxed less. Like the way my business is looking at it, we're obviously 'cause you've got your corporation tax and stuff. We're looking into electric vehicles, like vans and stuff, but it's just the network. Like I've driven past electric car charging station on the motorway, and there's been a massive queue, and I'm like, I'm not queuing it. British people with queuing are not a good idea.
In our world, you're absolutely right, couldn't agree with you more. And there are so many businesses that are even willing to look at the workplace charging situation and go, well, I'll stick a 7 kilowatt charger in. So we've ticked the box.
Yeah.
And because they don't even drive an EV, they're happy with that because they've done that. Every EV driver turns up and goes, well, unless I'm going to be here till 5, I'm here for a 2-hour meeting.
Yeah.
What's the point? So we're in that place where we're trying to educate and say, well, who are you, what are you, and who is your user base? Because dependent on your user base, if actually you're a destination location, so you're going to have a lot of people who are only there for an hour, well, we need to look at super fast charging for you, because then you're delivering a service that's worth having.
But that's where the financial implication could come through. You could say, right, well, I've set amount of free charging. As soon as your car's been plugged in for that amount of time, we're going to then start charging.
And I think e-bikes could be a great solution for people who live within a certain radius that just need to start trying it. So if we have a scheme where you're just trying it rather than investing, because you don't know whether you want to keep the bike.
New builds, they will give a lot of allocated space to the likes of bike sheds, to the showers, changing areas. Because like one of the things that holds people back in cycling to work is if they get to work covered in like sweaty. So have you got a bike shed? Yes. Have you got shower facilities? Cool. Well, that becomes a lot more accessible there. So you're not turning up to a meeting, in a stained shirt.
Sustainable development goals, and this is, I don't know if you're aware of the 17 SDGs, and our industry, unlike many others actually, has the ability to positively affect all 17. We have issues from a global perspective: poverty, inequality, climate change. All these things are ever pressing, and having a comprehensive framework that can address these challenges.
But this M&E consultants and architectural designers that will specify a product, but then the contractor, if it's a D&B contract, will put something forward that's nowhere near matching the credentials of what could actually be afforded, because it's saving the contractor money. So I'm spotted quite a lot on LinkedIn. There's a lot of residential products being specified in the commercial arena that will fall over within 2-3 years, shouldn't be installed, but then that company's then having to buy the same product again, but commercial grade, and I'm seeing a lot of it.
Definitely hugely dependent on the company size as well, because we work with a lot of property developers, and obviously smaller who have just started out property developers, they don't do anything towards sustainability, whereas I've been chatting to another property developer, whereas they're tendering for the bigger contracts, but they're only thinking about now, because I chatted to Alibi the other day, the tender has just turned around to them and gone, you can have it, but you need your sustainability stuff in place.
I think when you get these large organisations that do have a massive impact, and that ripple out is absolutely colossal, it's really key for them specifically to actually identify the specifics behind those emissions, create those programs so that they can actually integrate that into what they're doing so that they can tackle that. And if they're not, then eventually they're going to be forced to, even though they might be under legislation now, they're going to be forced to actually tackle that, because the aspect of that impact, if that's not being taken care of, people are now starting to ask questions.
That's why I like Charlotte's point as well of using local companies, using smaller businesses, because if we're taking, we're the consumers, aren't we, for these big brands? Whereas if we're moving a lot of what we do to smaller businesses who have got a key focus on this, that'll then hopefully start triggering some thoughts of, actually, we're losing quite a lot of customer on the back of this and this, which will then drive the change. That's the only way I personally can see it.
Communicating the goals is a very important thing, not just to other companies that you work with, but we have individuals who are clients as well, and staff as well. And it's that sort of makes companies more accountable.
If you're a big company, you've got loads and loads of suppliers, how are you going to get to the point where you've actually reduced that supply chain emissions? It's really, really difficult. So whether it's right or not, you are going to get some companies that are going to have to say, if you can't join us on this journey, if you can't show what you're doing and actually communicate on the impact of what you're doing, we're going to struggle to do any business with you, because we need that information.
The public sector now is weighting their scores 20% on social value. They've made a big step in the right direction, and we're starting to see the private sector move in that direction as well, because it is so important. So those SMEs who are starting the journey, even if they are declaring, yes, we've got a lot of work to do, but we've started the journey, they are becoming more appealing.
A lot of the manufacturers that we work with now have a sustainability manager. There is someone whose entire role is to build better processes, make the company more sustainable, look at their supply chain.
Thank you very much indeed for being here today and sharing your experiences.